We have 2 rounds to go here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. As we head to Silverstone International Circuit here for the penultimate round of the competition. My name is Connery Medic. I'm joined by the one, the only Mr. Paul Smith as we return to the home of British motorsport for the 2nd time this season. This time we'll be heading to the international circuit of Silverstone instead of the Grand Prix layout that we had a little bit earlier on. So a bit of a curveball for the drivers, a bit of a curveball for us as we're not used to commentating on this particular layout of Silverstone, but it should be fun nonetheless.
Oh, it should be tremendous racing, and you know, this layout of the circuit is quite high speed. You've still got that opening sector with turn 3 being quite tight, but then it opens up, a little bit of a break, and then onto the hangar straight when you turn right instead of going round the loop on towards the old pit lane. So yeah, it's going to be an intriguing round of this championship, and of course only 3 points covering the top 2. The pressure is really on here to get a good result.
Yeah, it really is, as Kevin Ellis Jr. holds a very slender advantage into these final 2 rounds. You said it yourself, just 3 points separating Kevin Ellis Jr. and Sebastian Job. They've always been the front runners here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. Let's have a little bit, before we get to that though, and before we dive in to the details of the championship situation, here's a recap of what has gone by so far this season. This season has gone by very, very quickly. It feels like we've only had a couple of rounds rather than the many that we've had, and now we head to this penultimate round at Silverstone International here before heading to Brands Hatch GP next week for our finale. And well, it's been a fun affair so far this season. Let's just say that we've had plenty of action up and down the field, which is really what you love to see, and it's a great display of the British talent here in sim racing and esports. You know, I don't think we could have really asked for a better season so far, and the fact that the championship's so close coming into these final 2 rounds just makes it better.
Yeah, it's been tremendous, and you know, you go to show how you've got drivers who are current World Championship drivers and former World Championship drivers in here. You've also got Formula 3 driver in here. You've got Porsche Carrera Cup GB drivers have been involved as well. It's been a sensational series, and one that's been really entertaining to watch. And I mean, you can see those points right there. The 2 of them, 3 points between them. It's going to go down to that last race.
It's been a bit of a turbulent season at the very front though. Sebastian Job did hold the advantage very early on, but with a poor result at our special event double points round at Le Mans, and of course a poor result last time out in round number 6 as well, means that Kevin Ellis Jr. holds that narrow advantage. Graham Carroll still mathematically in with a shot of the championship, but unlikely. Jamie Fluke with a good run so far this season, up in 4th place, but still searching for that elusive race win. Isaac Price, with his return to iRacing, sits in 5th place at the moment. John Robinson not too far off the back of him. And you got those names further down: Jack Cedric, Jamie Moon, Blair Mann, Bart Horston down to P10. Of course, yeah, John Robinson P6 there, also in the hundreds. But yeah, all of that can shuffle. It's a pretty tight battle there, especially for P5, with multiple drivers within around about 20-30 points. So things can very much change in those minor positions.
Yeah, certainly can, and yeah, the heat is still on here. You know, mathematically, there's still a lot of people who can be involved in getting themselves a top 3 finish as well. So we've got plenty to see here, and these drivers, they put on a tremendous display of effort and precision, and the way that they can drive just goes to show what a talent pool we have here in the UK, and it's certainly been an intriguing season. But of course, penultimate round of the championship, we never know what's going to happen here. And yeah, it's certainly going to be a good, intriguing race. And Pete Berryman back for this week.
Yep, absolutely. So he's back in the game, so to speak, and back up there on circuit. Let's have a little bit of a recap of exactly what the format of today is. They are currently undergoing their usual 20 minutes of open qualifying. But of course, since the heat racing is in effect, then once the time in qualifying hits 0, that will be it. You won't be able to complete your lap. Then we'll have our first of our 25-minute races, a 10-minute warm-up in between races, and then we'll have race number 2, another 25-minute race with the top 6 reversed based on the results of the race 1. So that's how the grid is going to be set for race number 2, and it always causes a little bit of excitement because it's always the same two names, Sebastian Job and Kevin Ellis Jr. trying to work their way through the field thanks to that reverse grid, and it's always been prone to a lot of excitement.
Excitement is one word for it, that's for sure. Tremendous action. We're going to see quite a bit of slipstreaming here around this track. It's not the longest layout of Silverstone out there, just 3.62 kilometers in length. So a lot of high speed as well around here. So we've got a technical first sector, then that wide open blast down the hanger straight down to Stowe Corner, and then that final couple of corners where we've seen overtakes happen in the past. But look at those times there, and look who's in second place. Jack Sedgwick has not had the best of seasons. I don't think he'll be happy with his performance not only in this series but also in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. But Sedgwick up there in second place in qualifying so far. Still 13 minutes remaining here though.
Yep, still a while to go in qualifying, and we get to see the usual shenanigans when it comes to the teammates working together to get the best qualifying times, just using each other as drafting partners and also being able to get the slingshots as well towards the end of the lap to release the faster driver behind. 13 minutes left in qualifying. Sebastian Job top of the qualifying order at the moment, with Jack Sedgwick actually 1.5 tenths of a second behind us. You would have thought 1.5 tenths actually is a relatively decent gap considering the qualifying sessions previous. But here at this track, where it's this layout, excuse me, where the lap is so short, then that is actually more of a country mile. But Graham Carroll getting back up to the second spot there, thanks to the teamwork that's going on out there between the Red Bull Racing Esports guys. I haven't seen any competitive lap times being set by any of the Apex Racing team at the moment. I think they're still getting set, so expect laps from Ellis, Fluke and Robertson to appear in just a couple of moments.
Well, they're just ending their laps now as well, so they're out there working together as teammates. But yeah, well, this is something that we've been seeing all season long with these two, with Job and Carroll, and also with Ellis Jr., Fluke, Berryman and Robertson, and they start popping up on the timing screen now. So here's Pete Berryman down in towards turn number 3, and this is going to be one of your overtaking opportunities round here. Now normally you'd be slowing it right down for that left-hander, but instead you cut through here onto the brakes, clip the apex, don't let it run too far wide, and then you're onto the hanger straight. It's just non-stop is this layout. Intriguing. It's rarely used in any sort of league racing or things like that. I've not called a commentary on this layout of Silverstone, so it'll be interesting to see how things pan out here today.
Yeah, I haven't either. It's a very fast lap here, just over a minute, just a couple of seconds over a minute in fact. See the full complement of Apex cars head their way through the final couple of corners, through club they come, and let's see what the lap times are like for them. Is there any movement? There's a big amount of movement. They actually split the Red Bull cars with 2 of their own machines, so Robertson up into P2, Berryman up into P3, but Ellis Jr. still kind of languishing down in that 7th place at the moment. You would have thought they'd give more priority to him considering he is within that championship fight.
He's working his way through. He's got an opportunity now. He's in that slipstream as Kevin, and he'll be trying to move forward, although Berryman It's currently not doing too bad sectors-wise as they go into Stir once again. So these teammates are all working together. All of these Apex drivers, I think they've got the ambition to try and help Kevin Ellis Jr. take the championship here. They realise that they've got an opportunity to help Kevin get this championship.
Yep, they'll do everything possible, I have no doubt. Of course, they are involved in their own championship battles as well. Kevin Ellis Jr. able to improve up into 5th place here. And look at that, the entirety of the top 5 cars, all within 800ths of a second of each other here in qualifying. That is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's great to see out there. 800ths of a second, it's 600ths of a second. No, well, it's 800ths of a second there. But the whole grid, 6/10ths of a second covering the whole grid. So that shows how tight this pack is going to be out there. And that will mean that the racing will be tremendous to watch out there as they head on through Stir. Now, I'm just looking at my timing screen. The Red Bull drivers of Carroll and Job, they'll be coming towards the end of their first hot lap after their pit stops, although they're getting caught up with Fraser Williams in there for them, so I think they may have to abandon their laps. But you can see now you've got to watch those sausage curbs through the final part of the lap here at Vale and the club. Because that will unsettle the car, it will push you wide, it will ruin your lap. And yeah, they've come through set 107 and 106. They're still getting their tyres into place. I think this is where they really attack for the first of their hot laps on this set of tyres now.
Yeah, I think because the track's so short, just one outlap is simply not enough to be able to get the tyres up into the correct operating window. So it's mainly going to be the second, maybe even third laps that are the fastest here, just because it takes so long to get the heat into those tyres. Meanwhile, Sebastian Job going to be slipstreaming off his teammates, and his teammate will get out of the way, and well, someone else comes steaming all the way through. That was Blair Mann actually disrupting things somewhat for the Red Bull Racing Esports guys, and Blair Mann's going to go all the way out into the runoff, so it was all for nothing in the end, as into the Vale for the final time. Well, not the final time for these guys, but the final time on this lap as they head their way through the club corner. Again, I don't think there's going to be improvement due to the disruption that they had coming down the hanging straight, but still plenty of time and plenty of laps left in this session. And yeah, that's confirmed not an improvement there for either of the two of them. But it's going to be more difficult to try and improve your lap times coming into the latter end of the session now, as you know, the conditions do change out there on circuit, you know, due to the track temperature, you know, the clouds coming in and out, and obviously, you know, especially a short track like this, the heat going into the track from the cars does have a marginal effect as well. So it's going to be tougher for drivers to improve.
Absolutely, and of course, as more and more rubber goes down as well, it only goes so far, does that rubber, before it starts getting a bit sort of like glass out there for them. So they'll be gaining grip to a degree, and then it reaches a threshold when they're out there. But Carroll, he's coming round, he had a personal best first sector, so he'll be looking to set himself a quicker lap time across the line, and his time is not going to be an improvement, it doesn't look like. So Carroll, again, things just aren't working out for these two. The Apex drivers, they're all on their first hot lap, but I say first hot lap, we've seen how the tyres take a couple of laps to come into temperature. Isaac Price has just left the pits as well, so he's going for a start of his final run. But Horston has just come onto pit road as well to get a tyre stop done here. So drivers just getting themselves prepared for their final runs here in qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming into the final final 5 minutes and a half of this session at the moment, there is the number 36 car, the bright orange Porsche of Isaac Price. What a return to iRacing for him, doing so well in this series, you know, getting inside that top 5 and, you know, having a couple of good results here and there. it's great to see him back because he was always one of the strongest competitors in this sort of tin top GT type racing. And of course, he made his mark with his Core Sim Racing team in the World Championship Series way back when. But coming back as an individual, still able to put up competitive times.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's got plenty. He knows plenty about how to run in a series like this and to get the car into a place where he feels comfortable, and that's exactly what he's been doing here. As he's been going on in this series, you've seen him getting stronger and stronger against the competition as he's getting more and more practice in here back on iRacing after concentrating on other ventures out there. So he's coming down as Kevin Ellis Jr. moves up to second place on the grid. A good lap time from him. He's just 5/100ths of a second off of Sebastian Job.
Yeah, as close as you like. The front row of the starting grid, at least provisionally, consists of your two championship contenders that are only separated by 3 points in the standings. As close as you like between those two, and you can see Kevin Ellis Jr. on the back of this Apex Racing team train right now. That's the place he wants to be, to try and get all the slipstream possible to make the lap times happen. Coming down in towards Stowe Corner now, and there's even someone joining the party at the very front of the train, but they'll get out of the way and let these cars through. Kevin Ellis Jr. is hoping that this lap is the one that gains him that extra 0.5 of a second to be able to surpass Sebastian Job right at the front of the qualifying order right now. Coming up towards Club, run over that curve, try and get as much exit as possible without getting a 1x, and it's a 1:04.773 for Kevin Ellis Jr. Is an improvement, but it's not enough to be able to get up to Sebastian Job. It was about another 100th of a second or so that he gained. Yeah,
you can see him at work there. He really needs to push on and get himself just those few hundredths of a second is all it takes, but it's those last few hundredths of a second which separates these top drivers. So it really is intriguing to see how he gets on here. He's not had a personal best in the first sector or in the second sector. I think he's maybe just trying to get himself in a position where he can then push on. 2.5 minutes. They'll just get 2 more laps in here because, of course, as we said earlier, once that clock strikes 0, that is it. No qualifying, no finishing your lap there.
Across the line he comes. 1:04.927. So that's a couple of tenths of a second off the mark there for Kevin Ellis Jr. So maybe the performance in that car hasn't quite worked out. He's going to continue out there though. As we had Moon, the driver of number 76, get up into P number 9. So a great last little effort there in qualifying to put himself up into that position. One thing we haven't talked about so far, because it's very relevant in terms of the championship though, as you see one of the Apex cars go off ahead. You do get bonus points for pole position here. Just a single bonus point, but it can matter when there's only 3 separating the drivers in terms of the championship.
And just to point out as well, Isaac Price moved up to 6th place now, ahead of Fluke and Sedgwick, so Price has found himself some time. This will be the last assault then for these drivers out here. Sebastian Job is coming towards the end of a lap along with Graham Carroll, so they're at the end of a flying lap as well. So the Apex team, they've all been trying to just get themselves prepared for this final push here, but time is running out, and if you're going across the line now, you won't have time to set another lap.
They might just, at least the Apex guys.
Well, these well, yeah.
Yeah, but everyone else behind them, possibly not, because they basically crossed the line with about 1 minute and 6 seconds left on the clock, so, and it's 1 minute 4 lap time. So the Apex guys will be able to get one more in, The Rebel Racing Esports guys are done, so Sebastian Job and Graham Carroll are done, so that's the best lap times that they will be able to set. But is there anything left in the tank as far as this gaggle of cars are concerned? They've been out there on track for quite a while, so maybe the tyres are not in the best state, but they'll still go chasing for those lap times. John Robertson out into the runoff, not ideal for him. But is there any disruption right at the very front of the field? Can Kevin Ellis Jr. get the lap time in to go pole position and get that crucial bonus point? Well, we'll know in just a couple of moments as he heads his way across the line. The answer is going to be no, though. 1 minute, 4 seconds, 8.51. That is more than a tenth of a second off of Sebastian Job's best time. So the grid has been set then for race number 1 here today in round number 7 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain at Silverstone International Circuit. Sebastian Job pole position with Kevin Ellis Jr. on that front row. It's a championship leading front row there with John Robertson in P3 and Peter Berryman P4. So Kevin Ellis Jr. has a lot of rear gunners in this race, and it's really going to help him when it comes to challenging Sebastian Job. Graham Carroll in P5 and Isaac Price, good qualifying up into P6 for him. Jamie Fluke starts 7th with Jack Cedric P8, Jamie Moon in P9, Matt Emery starts in 10th today, Blair Mann P11th, and Bart Horston in 12th. Then at the very back of the grid you have the likes of Fraser Williamson, Matthew Dorrington, Lewis Goodway, Mizrav Lasnashlik, and Ryan Parkins rounds out the 17-car starting grid here today at Silverstone International. Drivers taking themselves to the starting grids then. Kevin Ellis Jr. Going to be starting from P2. That is your championship leader here. If he gets a good start, he will have the inside for the first corner here, but that is definitely not a guaranteed pass coming down into there. So this start is pretty crucial here. But then again, there's going to be ample overtaking opportunities at this circuit due to the slipstream and the slingshots.
Don't forget the second race that we had at Silverstone at the start of the season as well. Sebastian Job had a terrible getaway from the line in that one. So it's all well and good saying, you know, you've got that line into turn 1. You need to get it off the line to start with here, and that's what these drivers will have to face. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one and intrigued to see how it goes on today.
What does round number 7 have to hold here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain? Sebastian Job gets this race started from pole position, a mega launch from that spot, not a repeat of the last time that we were at Silverstone. Single file between the top 4 cars coming in towards the first sector for the first time. Pretty clean start for everyone at the front. No lunges to the inside just yet in those top couple positions, but side by side between Peter Berryman and Graham Carroll as Carroll looks to try and break that apex wall.
Yeah, he's doing everything he can to try and breach that one as Cohn goes flying there between Cedric and Price. Price actually dropping down the order. Now, has he got a slowdown penalty? Yes, he has. That's why he's going all the way to the back. And on the lap 1, that is a huge, huge error to make here. So, yeah, Carroll has been trying to put the pressure on, but right now Fluke is trying to put the pressure on Carroll here. So, Jamie, the Northern Irishman, trying to do it. As behind them, Blair Mann and Jamie Moon battling it out as well.
Oh, this is the mid-pack fighting that we've usually expecting to see in this series, and they're absolutely going at it. Matt Emery looking to the inside. He gets a poor run off the corner though, so Fraser Williamson's able to dive down his inside in towards turn number 1, and he's able to gain that position. Fantastic stuff there from Fraser Williamson to pick up the pieces after they decided to go 2 by 2 and then even 3 wide. Matt Emery! Oh, that's a big lunge! That is a big, big lunge, and it completely sideswipes Fraser Williamson. He's not going to be too happy about that, and that was very optimistic on the brakes into the loop.
Optimistic, I think, is one word that I'd use there. As yeah, late on the brakes, locking up, all anchors locked up. That's not happening there at all. So yeah, Matt Emery with the big lock up there. It cost him dearly. It's all the way down to the back of the field here.
Meanwhile, returning back to the very front of the field after the drama in the mid-pack, everything seemingly calm here at the very front. Isaac Bryce has had a very, very poor start as well. He's down in P number 14. I think that was because of the slowdown that he had at the very start, or at least he was involved in that whole situation at the very start of the race. So having to fight from behind at this point. But a single file train for P1 through 6 at the moment is quite an obvious split, basically near enough down the middle in this field as those dramatic moments happen behind these guys. But coming down the hangar straight now, I don't expect to see any early moves, especially from the Apex Racing team cars on each other. Those two that are sitting behind Kevin S. Jr. at the moment, they are just happy to just lie in wait and let Kevin get on with it in terms of challenging your race leader.
Yeah, I think if they get halfway through the race and if there's been no movement, Kevin might say to one of the others, right, come on, you have a go now. Really put the pressure on Sebastian, get him to work his tyres so that then I can have a go towards the end of the race. It's a tactic that's available to them. They've just got to be careful with how strong the slipstream is here as they head on through turn 1. There's this lead pack, this front 6 has already got best part of 3 seconds away from Jamie Moon, who's in 7th place, battling with Blair Mann. So Mann putting the pressure on Moon there, right up behind, and trying to get the chance to cause an issue there, cause a mistake from Moon, but Moon's doing a good job there. Jack Sedgwick is loitering around just in the background there. There you see him, number 57, just keeping tabs on what's happening in front.
Yep, he is. Battle for P7 up on your screen. And man, just getting the back end a little bit there, coming through Stowe. The car not too settled in that very fast right-hander. Coming through Vale now towards Club, and it looks like Blair Mann's getting a lot of time here, really closing things up. Oh, almost out into the runoff, coming through Club as he continues to sit in the slipstream and gain the time in towards Abbey, then through the slight left before you hit the braking zone into Village. And this is the favourite place for the lunge, isn't it, Paul? As it's a very wide and inviting corner.
Yeah, we saw that on the just a couple of laps ago, didn't we? How it's a very inviting corner. But yes, the drivers, now that the tyres are into pressure and into temperature, this is where you'll start seeing the quick laps coming through and less mistakes happening because the tyres and brakes are up to temperature and the tyres up to pressure. So definitely you'll be seeing those opportunities happening out there. And National Check is on pit road for the best part of a minute and a half now, so he's had issues out there as Miroslav. That means that we've just got 16 cars left on the track.
Yeah, just that single retirement so far in this one. There's, like you quite rightfully mentioned, National Zig bringing that car down on towards pit lane. That's unfortunate, but he will still be able to take part in the next race in around about, 30 minutes time, because 10 minutes break and the rest of this race. Meanwhile, further back in the pack, we've got Isaac Price on the recovery drive, dives down the inside of Ryan Parkins, and Parkins basically kind of content to let that happen for now. And, well, they're coming through like the little infield section, which characterizes this international layout. Once you get into the loop and get into Village, it's basically you're deviating from the Grand Prix layouts, and you're changing tack somewhat, and you cut back onto the hangar straight on the way down towards Stowe. So it's again, it's not a layout that these drivers will be used to, and it's kind of weird seeing it for the first couple of times. You're thinking, wait, where are they going? This isn't the usual Silverstone circuit, but it's just the situation that these drivers have to deal with, and of course they would have practiced it a ton in the run-up to this, just to get the muscle memory of the Grand Prix circuit out of their system. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, they get an hour before the actual race here in this session, so they get an hour out there on track to really make sure that they get it. But yeah, they'll have put in 10 hours or so practicing those who haven't got other commitments. There are quite a few that do have World Championship commitments involved in that lead pack, so they won't have been able to have focused that much on this. It's pretty much jump in and drive for those drivers. But of course, it's a fixed setup championship, so all these cars are identical, and it's down to the person behind the wheel to be able to get the most, extract the most out of this car.
I think Bart Horston having a good couple of looks on this one. In fact, that's Jack Sedgwick, excuse me, that's having a look at the very back of this train. Very strong driver indeed on his day, but can be prone to some couple of errors here and there. That man, of course, sandwiched in this little battle that's going on for this 4P7 at the moment. So things kind of stalling out a little bit in those mid-pack battles. No one's really close enough to go for the lunge. Of course, you see this leading train and you think, oh, they absolutely nose the tail. Surely there's going to be some moves soon. It's not necessarily the case, unless Kevin Ellis Jr. can get a good run on Sebastian Job here, coming down in towards Stowe, for example. He goes to the outside. Oh, there's not a lot of room to make that one work there, Kevin. And he'll try to get the run off the corner now, out of Stowe corner, to be able to make something happen in the braking zone of Vale. But that was optimistic, and now he dives down towards the inside, scares Sebastian Job out of the line. Kevin Ellis Jr. is going on the full-on offensive right now, and Sebastian's quaking in his boots.
We know how aggressive Kevin can be with his overtakes from this series and from the Porsche Carrera Esports Super Cup. So we know what he's got in his arsenal here. Sebastian Job, though, equally can be very aggressive with the moves. So these two putting on a clinic here right now through the right-hander at Chapel, back onto the hanger straight, and Sebastian Job just feeling the pressure a little bit. But Kevin Ellis Jr., he won't want to overtake too early. He'll want to be looking after his tyres to a degree. You can see that slipstream coming into effect, into Stowe, and Job is going to chop off his nose. Kevin doesn't want to be in front yet.
Yeah, he's just sizing him up at the moment, I get the feeling. Or, even if he does want to try and get past now, he'll put Sebastian Job in the position where he still has to be looking in his mirrors, because those other Apex cars behind, John Robertson, Pierre Berryman, won't be as nice with Sebastian Job as they are being with Kevin at the moment. So I think one of the strategies Kevin might be thinking about is okay, if I can get past here, I can get my teammates to kind of gang up on him and cause him a massive problem so I can start to run away.
Possibly. I mean, they have got their own championships to be thinking of as well, and of course there is no team's championship in this. It's all an individual championship here, so there is an element of selfishness needs to take place as well. They are racing drivers after all. It's all about themselves first, but some of the more experienced hands will see the bigger picture here. They'll be wanting to help their compatriot Kevin Ellis Jr. try and win the championship. The same as what Graham Carroll has been doing with Sebastian as well in this series. He's really been sort of, not so much rear gunner, but he's been really working together with Sebastian to try and upset the other drivers who are trying to attack him. So you're seeing how that this game of chess at 150 miles an hour is really panning out.
Yeah, a little bit of side-by-side action further back. Player man Jack Sedgwick going wheel to wheel, at least briefly, coming through club corner, and now through towards turn number 1. Is there going to be a lunge at the inside at Village for Jack Sedgwick? He certainly has the speed, and Blair Man taking to the middle of the circuit. He wants to try and put the defense on here. Jack looking to try and get the cut back off the corner as they skip their way through the loop, which is a much wider radius corner here than it is at the Grand Prix layout, because you have to cut on towards the hanger straight towards the end of the Grand Prix lap. Now Jack said, oh, someone's got a slow down penalty. Jamie Moon has to pull out of the way. He got a slow down penalty through the last couple of corners, and now Jack Sedgwick's looking to get 2 in the same lap here, benefiting from the slow down penalty. Now looking to try and get a pass on merit on Blair Mann, who currently resides in that 8th spot. Now it's the battle for 7th, thanks to the driver dropping further back. Cedric looking to the inside for the first looking to the outside, excuse me, for the first apex of Vale. Now towards the inside for Club Corner. Still wheel to wheel. Blairman still ahead, still clear. Has to go wide onto the runoff and probably pick up a 1x as a result. But this battle certainly isn't over because Jack Cedric's all over that rear bumper.
And this shows how the simulator will punish you if you just cut a little bit too much of a corner. That chapel corner is really one that's inviting to cut across the inside of the curb. You'll see it right here. And Cedric has got a slight bit of damage on the front right of his car. That will be affecting his top speed down the hangar straight here. It's ever so slight. You can't really see much of it. But looking forward, Sebastian Job is taking a very defensive line through the Vale into Club. He is under serious pressure here, and Ellis Jr.'s got a nose in there.
Yeah, he has, and here we go. Here's the battle for the race lead between the two championship contenders. They get so close. Coming through Club Corner. We're inside the final 12 minutes of this race, and the race lead battle has become a light here through turn number 1. Ellis Jr. still looking for a line through. Carries the speed through the left-hand kink, now into the braking zone at Village, tries to go the long way around. Meanwhile, Peter Berryman's lunged on his teammate in the background there, sending John Robertson wide. He wants to try and get involved in this battle at the front as well. Carroll's also trying to make moves at the back of the train too, but that was the first sign of of potentially some great side-by-side battling upcoming for this battle for the race lead. Here's the battle deeper in the pack though. John Robertson looking to the inside on Carroll. Up towards Stoke Corner. Can he hold it on the inside? He's starting to break traction. He has to drop back and give Carroll the spot. And he's not giving this one up. He's still showing the nose into Vale. Just a lot of spirit.
But that move by Pete Berryman allowed Graham Carroll to make the move on John Robertson. So Robertson lost 2 positions there, and that's allowed Carroll to get that little bit closer to that lead battle. That's what Graham wants. He wants to progress forward to try and help out his British teammate Sebastian Job. It's not too often that you see a Scotsman and an Englishman getting on, but these two do get on like a house on fire. So yeah. They're trying to work together to get Sebastian the most possible points here, and that has just slightly helped Graham with that move from Peter.
It has. More forward progress needed though. Remember, we do have this battle for P7 still raging on between Blairman and Jack Cedric, and Cedric's going to get a run of speed here coming down towards Stowe. Let's see if he goes to the inside. Yes, he will gesture to the inside, and he will commit down the inside as well. They almost make door-to-door contact in the middle of the corner. Meanwhile, there's a battle for the race lead going on right now as Kevin Nash Jr. is trying to size up Sebastian Job. Hopefully we can get that battle to the race leads, because they're going side by side through Club Corner right now, and across the start-finish line they go. Kevin Ellis Jr., it's another attempt here to get to the race lead. It's a similar sort of move to what he tried to pull off just a couple of laps ago, but he's still not successful for now. Sebastian Job going ultra defensive into Village. Kevin taking the wide line through.
But crucially, Pete Berryman had a moment through the left-hander at turn 2, and that's allowed Graham Carroll to move up into 3rd place now. So all of a sudden, the Scotsman Graham Carroll putting the pressure on Kevin Ellis Jr. as Jr. is trying to make moves on your race leader, Sebastian Job.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the forward progress that Graham Carroll really needs to make, because now, if Kevin Ellis Jr. gets past Sebastian Job, Job is not under immediate threat from really anyone behind if Graham Carroll wants to be nice and play the good teammate. So this actually swings slightly more now in the favor of Sebastian Job, because Carroll, as well as being that buffer zone, he can make himself look big in Ellis Jr.'s mirrors and giving something else to think about, because for most of this race, he's had teammates behind him that haven't been threatening any moves on him, but now that's different.
Yeah, this has just changed the dynamic of this front group a little bit, and that is crucial here. We've got eight and a bit minutes remaining, so still, this is not over not yet by a long shot, as they come through Chapel once again. But now Carroll's got the bit between his teeth, and Ellis Jr., I think he has a little bit more urgency now to try and move to the front of the field.
Yeah, urgency is probably one of the best word for it. We've got 8 minutes to go. That doesn't mean we've only got a few laps, because the lap times are so short here. You can see Kevin Ellis Jr. flashing the lights. You got to pull out every single trick in the book, don't you, to try and get your way past. And just leaning on the flashing light button, then I guess that's one tool in your arsenal, I suppose. Across the line they come, completing lap number 16 onto 17. 7.5 minutes to go, fighting in the mid-pack going on as well. This is actually more towards the very back, as Fraser Williamson getting past Ryan Parkins there around the outside in towards Club Corner. Well worked pass there for Fraser Williamson. But the main thing that I do want to focus on is still this leading train, because as exciting as everything is going on back here, this is where the storylines are really, really important, and where potentially the championship will be won and lost.
Yeah, Junior now, Kevin, just holding his line. Job just taking a slightly narrower line into Stowe Corner, and Kevin Ellis is trying to just hang it round the outside. That's not going to quite work there. Sometimes you want to take the outside line through here to give you the inside for the right hand of the final corner. So Ellis Jr., he knows he's got options available to him, and with 6 laps roughly remaining, he's still got time.
Yeah, that's the main thing. He's got time. He's trying to apply the pressure, so he's been doing well in trying to apply the pressure. He's looking here and there. He's not allowing Sebastian Job to really relax. It's not like the pest race that we had here at Silverstone before, where they were just kind of sitting behind each other. Was Joshua Rodders in that instance behind Sebastian Job and just kind of sizing him up and not really looking for the moves and just sitting there comfortably. This has been a different race compared to that. Kevin Ellis Jr. has been looking for these moves on Sebastian Job. He's not giving him a break and waiting until the final lap. He wants to get it done here and now, which is a completely different dynamic to what we saw with the Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup.
Yeah, this is incredible though. 6 cars covered by 1.6 seconds. This is tremendous stuff to be seeing here. They've just been able to just waltz away from that battle for 7th with Sedgwick, Blairman, Isaac Price. Isaac Price actually recovering back to 9th place now, so really doing a good job after falling all the way to the back of the field with that opening lap slowdown penalty. But yeah, this front 6, they've just been in a world of their own here, and they've certainly given us a tremendous display so far. Still, plenty of time, just under 5 minutes remaining here, and it's going to be roughly about 4 laps remaining at the end of this one.
4 laps to go, 4 laps remaining in this first race. Remember, we have an entirely different second race coming up with the reverse grid of the top 6 cars, and it just so happens that the leading pack consists of 6 cars, so it's basically going to be the reverse grid based on this leading train at the moment. So right now, with the reverse grid, Jamie Fluke will start pole position for race 2 with Peter Berryman in 2nd and John Robertson P3. So it's a whole gaggle of Apex cars at the very front. And once again, it's Jamie Fluke getting to the front at the start of a second race. But he's not always been able to hold on to that one, has he?
Yeah, I mean, last time out, he just didn't quite have the pace. I was actually watching his point of view last time out, and he'd used the tyres up, which is what cost him in the end, so he wasn't happy with his performance. Track state, by the way, track temperature is 32.8 degrees Celsius, so it's not the hottest of track temperatures out there, so they will be feeling the effects a little bit towards the end of the race, but it's not going to have a huge difference here in this one.
Yeah, it's kind of like a middling temperature, believe it or not, for iRacing. Maybe not for the UK, but yeah. 3 minutes and 20 seconds left remaining. I just had a look to see who actually has the fastest lap right now, and that goes to Jamie Fluke, actually, at the very back of this train. So he will be getting the bonus points for the fastest lap in this race instead of any of the top contenders right now. So, you know, that might be one of the things that are crucial coming towards the end of the season, because there's only a handful of points in it right now. There's no reason why there can't only be a handful of points left in it at the end of the second race in a week's time.
Well, Jamie will like that, because one, it will help him. Oh, Carroll is going to try and make a move there. He was looking menacing on Ellis Jr., but that's going to compromise him through Chapel and onto the Hangar Straight, so he's not going to quite have the pace there. But I think Carroll is trying to get in Kevin Ellis Jr.'s head and trying to really put the pressure on and force the mistake from him. So yeah, it was a bit of a look into Chapel from Carroll, and not normally an overtaking spot we've been finding here from this opening race here that we've been watching. As I say, first time I've commentated on this track and on this layout in particular, and they're certainly giving us a good display out there, but they just seem to have separated a little bit out there. Isaac Price has dropped down to 10th place. He had briefly moved up into 8th, so something's happened to Isaac out there towards the end of the lap. But yeah, Matthew Dorrington as well is back on pit road. He was further down in the order, so he's had issues in the last lap or two. And Berryman and Robertson are switching places.
Yep, they are. So maybe that was an orchestrated one. Look at this, though, for the race lead. Oh, Sebastian Job's out half of the grass. Oh, excuse me, that was Graham Carroll. I got confused with my Red Bull cars, but because it was an Apex and a Red Bull car going side by side. But it's Kevin Ellis Jr. and Graham Carroll then going side by side, door to door, coming through Stowe Corner. And this is important for Sebastian, because if he can get his teammate ahead of Kevin Ellis Jr. here, that's a more of a point swing in this race. Kevin Ellis Jr. desperately does not want to lose this position. They'll be absolutely door to door coming across the line. We've only got about a minute and 3 seconds to go when Sebastian crossed the line, so I don't know whether this is going to go one more or not. The battle for P2 is still continuing between Carroll and Ellis Jr. and Joth looking in his wing mirrors, rubbing his hands together, because look at the gap he's gotten already. It's about 2 seconds between the race leader and this train. That's exactly what Job needed, and the bonus is that Carroll got ahead.
Yeah, Ellis Jr. made a tiny mistake through Chapel on that last lap, and that's cost him big time here. Down the Hangar Straight they go, and I do believe this should be the last lap, because time should run out before they go across the line. But that was tremendous stuff and tremendous respect from both drivers.
Yeah, a lot of space given. That's the respect coming through. Oh, Goodway and Horston have had problems deeper in the pack, but the time has expired now. Checkered flag is out, and Sebastian Job holds off all the pressure throughout this race to come home P1 at the end of race 1, round number 7 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup. A Great Britain. Meanwhile, side by side, deeper in the pack between Jamie Moon and Isaac Price, and Moon will be able to come out on top in that particular battle further down the order. But that might be one of the turning points at the very end of the season in terms of the championship. It's so crucial for Carroll to get ahead there, for Sebastian Job to have more of a points buffer here at the end of this race.
Yeah, that's going to be big for Sebastian to get that Kevin Ellis Jr. down another place. It just gives him a bit more points over him. And yeah, that's tremendous stuff. That was really enjoyable stuff, and we'll see how the second race pans out, because as he mentioned, the top 6 have their positions inverted for the grid.
No, I mean, Jamie Fluke takes a pole position for race number 2, but we'll run down the results anyway. Sebastian Job P1, Graham Carroll P2, Kevin Ellis Jr. P3, Peter Berryman finishes 4th, with John Robertson 5th and Jamie Fluke in 6th. And then those outside of the reverse grid spots, Jack Cedric P7, Blair Mann P8, Jamie Moon P9 and Isaac Price in P10. And then you get the rear part of the field. Fraser Williamson, Ryan Parkins, Matt Emery, Lewis Goodway, Bart Horston, Matthew Dorrington and Bishrav Lashasik, one of the early retirements in this race, 20 laps down, but he'll start from the very back in race number 2. So that's race 1 done at Silverstone International Circuit, and it's well, Sebastian Job, as a result of just working out the points in my head, he's going to be ahead coming into the second race in terms of the point standings. And that would have been the plan all along, but I guess it tasted a little bit sweeter that Carroll was able to also get onto that second step of the podium as well. So now, Paul, what is the plan for Kevin Ellis Jr. and Apex Racing Team coming into this second race? Because you have that group of cars at the very front. You have a front row lockout in effect with the cars of Jamie Fluke and John Robertson. You even have a second row lockout of Peter Berryman and Kevin Ellis Jr. Do those 3 Apex cars at the front just open the door for Kevin Ellis Jr. to get to the front and then cause hell for the Red Bull Racing Esports drivers, or are you going to see something different?
I think we're going to see something very similar to how that all panned out there in that first race. They'll be hoping to try and keep it clean, because there's nothing worse than carrying damage on a high-speed track where slipstream is key. So they'll be trying to keep it clean and try and minimise any contact out there on track. Sebastian did, of course, get pole position for that first race, so don't forget there was that bonus points for him as well in that one. So yeah, he should be about 5 or 6 points in the lead as we go into the second race of the day here. But it'll be interesting to see what the tactics are from the Apex Racing Team drivers, how they work together. I mean, we saw how Pete Berryman earlier in that first race made a move and it just tangled up a few of the drivers, allowed Graham Carroll to move through, and that meant that that gave Graham Carroll that impetus to start moving forward in the field, which eventually ended up in him finishing second place.
Yeah, it was brilliant effort from Graham Carroll. He started in P5, and like you said, he was able to just work his way through that train. And you know, despite all of them, you know, being teammates and all of them kind of colluding to make sure Kevin Ellis Jr. was in the most comfortable space possible, it didn't matter to Graham Carroll. He was still able to find the gaps and find the passing opportunities, and a lot of it was due to mistakes from the drivers that he was competing against. But to be able to capitalize on those opportunities time and time again is just a very good sign of a strong and consistent driver.
Yeah, Graham is one of the very best out there, without a doubt, and he's a very experienced driver as well, to be able to take those drivers on and to push on. And yeah, he showed that maturity and that experience to be able to just take his time. He didn't panic, he didn't rush, he didn't try and force his way through. It was just, oh, there's a mistake, I'll take that position, thank you very much.
Yeah, and you know, you got to take those opportunities when they arise. Otherwise, you're just going to get stuck behind someone, and you're going to be losing time, and you're going to be losing track of those cars further ahead that you could have challenged if you were able to get past just that little bit earlier. Just to let everyone know, we were about 5.5-ish minutes away from getting to the starting grid for race number 2 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain here at the Silverstone International Circuit. It's been a fantastic event so far. Of course, a different layout to what we're used to seeing in terms of this circuit, but it has really delivered so far in this one. Would you say that, Paul?
It certainly has. It's I mean, you look at that. It wasn't just the front pack, that front 6 that was giving you the action. There was the drivers further down: Isaac Price, Jack Sedgwick, Jamie Moon, and those drivers that were further down in that second pack. Blair Mann, of course, who finished in 8th place. They were battling away, and then you had the rest of them with Fraser Williamson, Parkins, Emery, Goodway, Horston as well involved in battling. So it's not just the battling at the front that's been intriguing, it's been what's been going on further down as well that's been interesting to see out there. So you never, you know, don't think that all the attention is at the front. We are keeping an eye on everything that's going on out there. It's just that it's so crucial now at this stage of the championship to see how things pan out for Job and for Ellis Jr.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just having a look at the protest sheet actually from last time out at Donington, and there were a couple of instances involving, for example, Bart Horston, who actually got two 10-second time penalties for his instance coming down into Redgate And apart from those incidents, those were the only penalties, I believe, that were handed out. There was the investigation between Sebastian Job and John Robertson, which was ruled no further action. But apart from those, we don't actually have any sort of hanging over penalties from the previous event, apart from the suspension of Simeon Lynch, the driver of number 13, because of comments made towards Bart Horston. So, you know, apart from those little instances, the previous event was pretty clean. This event has been relatively clean as well. I mean, we saw that dive into Village a little bit earlier on by one of those drivers, but it's good that these drivers are able to keep things together and keep it clean and show some exemplary racecraft. It's I think the racecraft is better in this series than it is in the Porsche Carrera Esports Super Cup, for example.
Oof, that's starting a debate. Of course,
yeah, you know me.
Of course, a bigger field in the Porsche Carrera Esports Super Cup, so more cars means more opportunity of there being contact. But yeah, I can understand what you're saying there. But I will say, the respect that was shown between Job and Ellis Jr. and then Ellis Jr. and Graham Carroll just goes to show the level of respect between those drivers to give each other space and to make sure they don't get involved in any unnecessary incidents out there. So it's good to see that they're able to work together and still fight hard but fairly as well.
You know me, I don't shy away from some very slightly controversial comments, but yeah, absolutely. It's been great to see the racing that has happened over the course of this season, and we've still got, well, one race to go this afternoon, and of course we got 2 races in the grand finale next week at Brands Hatch, so still plenty of action to come in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. We're about a minute and a half away from getting our gridding procedure started here for race number 2. So Jamie Fluke then, starting from pole position. We've got John Robertson inhabiting that front row with him. So for Jamie Fluke, this is another decent opportunity to try and get away at the very front of the field, but due to how the cars keep each other close together at this circuit, is probably impossible for him to run away without anything happening on the first lap, for example. So it's going to be tough for him to keep that spot, and of course, if he has to move out of the way of Kevin Ellis Jr. to let him through, then he probably will, because the championship fight for Kevin is much more important than whatever fight Jamie Fluke's in.
Yeah, absolutely, but Jamie, he still wants a good result though for himself. Don't get that wrong, he still wants to get as good a finish as possible for him. Be interested to see whether that second pack of Cedric, Mann, Moon and Price can hang on to this leading pack in this race, because of course in that first race that we saw, they were all squabbling amongst themselves, and that allowed that front pack of 6 to pull away. So we'll see whether they're able to hang on and we end up having just a queue of cars from 1st to 17th. That'd be nice. That'd be nice to see out there.
It would be. And I think the set of circumstances we could have could let that arise. So as long as everyone keeps it clean on the first couple of laps, there's no reason why we can't have that big old massive train for P1 in the opening stages of the race at least. But the checkered flag is out in the little warm-up session that these drivers have in between the 2 races here, so we'll be able to get confirmation on the grids then for race number 2 of Silverstone International here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. Jamie Fluke pole position, John Robertson P2, Peter Berryman P3, Kevin Ellis Jr. P4, Graham Carroll and Sebastian Job make all Red Bull Racing Esports row number 3. Jack Sedgwick, Blair Mann, Jamie Moon, Isaac Price, Fraser Williamson, and Ryan Parkins bring it down to P12. And then you get those final couple of drivers right at the very back of the starting grid: Matt Emery, Lewis Goodway, Bart Horston, Matthew Dorrington, and Miroslav Nashchelczyk rounding out the field there. P number 17 is the starting spot for him, as we are just a couple of moments away from getting race number 2 started here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain at Silverstone International. We're about to get this race underway. Drivers are all prepared, I'm all prepared, and I hope you are at home as well, because this one has the potential to be absolutely nuts. We get the green flag here at Silverstone, and they all storm their way down in towards turn number 1. The Apex cars getting signal file very quickly at the very front of the field, but Graham Carroll's wanting to make quick forward progress. He's looking all over the back of Kevin Ellis Jr. as Ellis Jr. is looking on his teammate down towards the inside of Peter Berryman. So side by side between Apex, side by side between Red Bull Racing Esports. Graham Carroll still trying to challenge Peter Berryman around the outside, coming through the loop in towards Chapel now. Is there door-to-door contact? They're leaning on each other, and bye-bye cone as that gets flung into the grandstands, as we'll get to see a Peter Berryman slow down penalty.
Yeah, so because he got forced wide by Carroll there in that through Chapel corner, it pushed him too far wide, and I said you don't want to go too far wide out there because iRacing will give you a slowdown penalty. That's exactly what's happened to Berryman. I mean, that's almost a professional foul if that was football with what Carroll did. Just helped him out the way, and then gets himself. That's one less car to worry about for Job and Carroll there. Yeah,
but Sebastian Job was able to pick up the pieces there. So Carroll falling back behind his teammate. So Kevin Ellis Jr. P3. We've got Sebastian Job P4. And this train is keeping its integrity quite well. So everyone's still kind of nose to tail at the moment here in this one. It's just the fact that Lewis Goodway has dropped all the way off the back of this one. And of course, Peter Berryman had that slowdown penalty on the first lap, which is the worst point in the race to get a slowdown penalty, because iRacing uses some form of averaging of your time through that sector over the last couple of laps. But if it doesn't have an average time, like you're on the first lap, then it has nothing to go on. So it just gives you the maximum penalty in terms of a slowdown. But meanwhile, side by side, Emery getting very, very slidey indeed coming out of Stowe. So allows Parkinson but Horston now to have an attempt on him. Horston around the outside at the second apex. Berryman's involved in the thick of this as well, trying to get his recovery drive going. Single file through Club Corner, but they're as close as you like.
Yeah, so they're going towards the first corner again at Abbey, and those two, Horston and Emery, putting on a tremendous display. And well, it's Pete Berryman who's struggling out of this because he's losing out time to the leading pack. You've got Isaac Price and Blair Mann battling away there through Chapel, and again those two battling is allowing that lead 6 to pull away from them. So this is going to be even worse for Pete Berryman, who's trying to work his way through the field, as down into Stowe Corner. Isaac Price makes that work onto he goes deep, and that's going to allow Blair Mann to go through again.
Blair Mann with the cheeky switchback move into Stowe Corner, but this isn't over yet because Price is still angling into the inside for Vale, but he doesn't get a nose to the inside. So Blair Mann can shut that door in his face. And, well, what an exciting first couple of laps that we've had here so far. Jamie Moon still on the back of this one in that yellow and black Porsche, just hunting down the bright orange of Isaac Price. Price, is he going to go defensive coming in towards the village here? Yeah, kind of in towards the middle of the circuit there. Meanwhile, further up the field, you have Sebastian Job all over the back of John Robertson right now. Kevin Ellis Jr. is making progress on your race leader of Jamie Fluke, but here comes Sebastian Job to the inside, and John Robertson will not give it to him this easily, I don't think, in towards Stowe Corner, but he might not have a choice. He'll try to squeeze him to the inside. He gives him the lane of space on the inside and tries to rejoin almost into the path of Graham Carroll. Sebastian Job is past, but here comes the lunge back then from John Robertson. He's trying to slow down Job as much as possible in terms of his progress further up the field, and now Carroll's looking to try and follow through in his teammate's tyre tracks, coming through the final corner of Club. Across the line they come onto lap 5, and Carroll still angling to the inside for 10-1, but he won't be able to get anything done.
Robertson may only be young, but he's certainly not one to respect any reputations, that's for sure. Carroll, that was never on, was that? I'm sorry, but that door was always closing there. Carroll didn't, in my opinion, just from seeing that, didn't quite have enough of the car alongside. We'll get a look at this one then from on board. This is Graham Carroll's point of view. So he's clear, he's there. John Robertson, he can choose his line. He's the one at the head of this one. Carroll's quite a ways back, makes a late lunge. I mean, that door is always closing there.
He's not
far enough alongside, in my opinion.
That's why we have stewards to actually make decisions on those ones. We are just commentators. We don't have the final call on instance like that. But look at this scrapping in the back right now. These guys are absolutely insane. I guess they kind of don't really care about those top couple positions because they don't feel that they can challenge. So they're just all scrapping amongst themselves at the moment for basically P8 and back at this time. Side by side further back between Berryman and Ryan Parkins, as Parkins goes out very wide. May come under threat from Emery in a couple of moments. Meanwhile, further up, you got Robertson trying to fight with Williamson now, and Williamson in that chromed out silver and purple Porsche with the purple wheels. Again, I said last round how much I enjoyed purple wheels, but behind him, side by side between Isaac Price and John Robertson. Yeah,
Isaac Price trying to get alongside and past there, going for the over-under there. That's... We said about how good and clean the racing was in the first race. I think this has just been a little bit people just trying to make some desperation moves here.
Oh, there's more drama as well. Matt Emery's been spun around from behind, so 2 sets of front to rear contact. Misraz Vlaschilchik, the one sort of worrying about the stewards at this point. We'll get a replay here. So you can see this is the contact with Emery getting spun around, coming through a veil. And there we go. That's just a lazy one, isn't it? It's
not on.
It's a slam dunk time penalty at the end of the race, I think.
Stewart's got to be busy with this second race, that's for sure. But this lead pack, it's down to 5 cars now as this lead pack. Ellis Jr. is slowly gaining on Jamie Fluke. Sebastian Job is in a slipstream distance with Ellis Jr. here. Jack Sedgwick has moved up to 4th. Graham Carroll's down to 6th. So Carroll must have had a slowdown penalty down onto the hangar straight.
Yeah, because Carroll's now behind Blair Mann as well. So I'll have to see. Yeah, it was a slowdown penalty for Graham Carroll going a little bit too wide out of the chapel corner. That's where you get the slowdown penalty. It's not for cutting on the inside. It's for going too wide around the outside and carrying more speed than you should coming down the hangar straight. So that's why the slowdown penalty is enforced there.
And I've just seen the message in the server chat. Race director is saying, "Well, it's going to be a busy afternoon for us." Well, crucial now in this race is that Jamie Fluke and Kevin Ellis Jr. they're going to work together and try and help each other out. Sebastian Job in 3rd place is kind of on his own now. He's got Jack Sedgwick is about 2.5 seconds behind, so therefore he's not a threat behind. And Blair Mann, you can be assured, will be wanting to try and hang on to this position for dear life. Right as I say that, it just gets a little bit of a blip in his internet, but he'll want to hang on to this position for dear life. Carroll's looking to the inside, but that's not the position you want to be in there. This is the position you want to be in. That sets you up nicely for the over-under through Club Corner. So a good move there from Graham to get the position of a Blair Mann.
Yeah, expertly done there from the Red Bull Racing Esports driver. Jamie Moon in the yellow and black Porsche also looking to try and improve position here. He gets the run of speed into
the swap's happened.
Oh, yeah, the swap has indeed happened. I was suspecting that was going to happen for the race lead. So Jamie Fluke has let Kevin Ellis Jr. go, although Sebastian Job has gained a whole bunch of time. They wasted too much time by doing that, actually, because that's really allowed Seb to catch up now.
Yeah, that's the problem with making that swap like that. You slow each other up too much. So, yeah, that's not quite worked out how they would have liked to have planned. And here we go, Seb Job putting the pressure on Fluke. Fluke won't give this one up. He'll try and slow Seb down here, but it's not worked. And Fluke is just almost as if just let Job by there.
knowing Jamie, of course, that he wouldn't just let him go.
No,
I don't
no,
think
absolutely not.
He would be in the mindset to do that. But it's but the thing is, Jamie Fluke, usually a very, very clean driver, so he wouldn't have squeezed him like way too much and then caused an incident. So here we go then. Your championship contenders, P1, P2. Job, thanks to his results from race 1, is the championship leader at this point heading into this race, but Ellis can try and cut that gap back down by a race win here in race 2, but he would have loved to put more cars in between himself and Sebastian Job. And well, this is going to be a pretty intriguing final 15 minutes now, I get the feeling. Yes, Kevin Ellis Jr. does have help in the form of Jamie Fluke there. That's third in line, just about on the podium for him. But again, he would rather Jamie be able to hold on to P2 just for a little while longer than he did. Yeah,
in an ideal world, he would have liked Fluke to have been able to slow down. Oh dear, this is Pete Berryman off in the kitty litter. This is down at club, so something's happened there. Tried to make a move on Bart Horston as Pete. He's not happy after what happened on lap 1 into club. Oh, I'm sorry, you've got to give a bit of space there. You can't expect the car on your outside into the left and then on the inside into the right to suddenly just disappear. I'm sorry, but you've got to give a car's width of space or a little bit more.
Yeah, you must always leave the option for the car that you're fighting with to actually have some racetrack. You can't just push them wide and expect them to have to deal with it. And that's just the situation that's happened there. So again, another one for the race directors to sort out after the race. They've got quite the list at this point, I should say. But
oh, that one's easy. He's got him penalised himself by putting himself off the track. So there you go.
Yeah, I guess it's self-penalising.
Former race steward hat on Ray, right there. Not in this series, but there you go. Close at the lead.
Yeah, they were almost touching bumpers coming through the first turn there. Sebastian Job really turning up the heat, and this is basically the inverse of what was happening in the basically first 2/3 of race number 2. It was Kevin Ellis Jr. in that instance applying all the pressure. There's the mistake though from Kevin Ellis Jr. He gets a bobble coming off of Chapel, and that has opened the door now for Sebastian Job to make it door to door. He has the inside line for Stowe Corner as well. How does Kevin Ellis Jr. react here? He's going to try and stick it around the outside. He tries to squeeze Seb on the inside here. Look at this though. Oh, Kevin Ellis Jr. has got momentum on the outside. He's been able to hold on inside line for the Vale then, and Job has still been able to stick a nose in there. This is fantastic battling, and look who it's brought back in. Jamie Fluke is looking to try and help out, but the pass is done for the race lead, and Sebastian Job's back at the front. But can he hold on for 12 minutes? Because Kevin Ellis Jr. is going to come straight back at him. Of that, I am certain.
Kevin, one tiny little mistake. It shows how finite the margins are that these drivers are working with. It looked something of nothing, did that through Chapel, but it's what happened to him in race 1 as well, which gave Graham Carroll the move. So definitely Kevin Ellis Jr., he's pushing. Sebastian Job, you can see hanging the back end out a little bit, and all this battling has allowed Jack Sedgwick to catch up to the back of them now, so it's a 4-car train for the lead.
It is, and here comes Ellis Jr. back challenging for the race lead. He was able to carry the speed around the outside last time, but not so this time around. Back end out for Sebastian Job. Kevin Ellis Jr. deep down the inside, on the brakes into the Vale again, and Sebastian Job able to hold on again, but here comes the cutback move into Club Corner. Kevin Ellis Jr. has a nose in. Oh, they almost make contact. That was so close. And if they're going to race like this for the final 11 minutes, I won't have a voice at the end of this. Kevin Ellis Jr. again looking to the inside.
Oh, well, I'm knackered because I've got no voice at the moment. But crucially, Graham Carroll has moved up into 5th place, but he's 4 seconds or so behind this leading quartet out there at the front of the field. So Carroll now needs to get his head down and really push on and try and catch up to these guys to try and have any effect towards the end of the race. But this is what we were waiting for. This is what we wanted right here in this championship, and we are getting it. Close, hard, but fair racing.
Yeah, and it's a joy to see these two drivers in particular go wheel to wheel. There's so much respect between the two of them. Meanwhile, there's more side-by-side action deeper in the pack as Isaac Price going almost door-to-door with Blairman, almost literally so, as they might have made a little bit of contact. And again, coming through Vale, there's a slight tap through the second apex, and Blairman is able to hold on to position over Isaac Price in that instance. So there's a couple of places to look at through this race. It's not just the battle for the race lead that's giving a ton of excitement. It's these battles further back as well that might feature at the very end too.
But Blairman has slowly been dropping back down the order after that move of Graham Carroll. So he's dropped down to 7th now. He's up one position from where he started, so he'll be just trying to hang on to that one. A slide through Chapel there, getting onto the power. That won't help the rear tyres. That'll just heat them up a little bit, and Isaac Price gets that slipstream. Trying to look to the inside, no move on there though, so we'll slot back in line. But back to this lead battle. This has just calmed down a little bit. I think they're just trying to get themselves prepared for those final few laps. I mean, we've got 8 laps remaining of this race here, so this is going to the end.
Yeah, those 8 laps can go by very, very quickly, especially when the action has been so good. I'm seeing Matt Emery have a problem. He dropped further down the order there towards the very back of those cars that are still running. We've had 2 retirements. We've had Williamson, driver number 17 to 72, and we've also had Goodway retire from the event as well. Both of those cars down on pit lane, as you can see at the very bottom of the scoring tower on the left-hand side of your screen. There's the leading pack, 4 cars strong. Sebastian Job, Ellis Jr., Fluke, Sedgwick, that's the order. Sedgwick's had a very good run in this race, by the way. We haven't really mentioned him too much, but to be able to keep tabs on this leading pack, fantastic stuff from the driver of the number 57. Ellis Jr. as close as ever to your race leader heading in towards Vale, but again, no door-to-door action like we've seen over the past couple of laps. They'll try and get the speed off of Butler.
I said that I'd be interested to see whether Sedgwick could hang on to this lead pack and really give a run for their money. I mean, Sedgwick is a World Championship driver in his own right as well, so it's good to see him up there. He's not had the best of seasons in either the World Championship or indeed in this championship, so it's great to see him challenging for a podium here with Jamie Fluke, another man who I said yesterday if he didn't have any bad luck he wouldn't have any luck at all, does Fluke. So he's carrying on. The front two have actually gapped just that little bit over Jamie Fluke here, so it's a 2-2 battle rather than being a 4-car queue.
Yeah, that seems to be the case here as you're riding on board with Jack Sedgwick at the moment. This is his view of everything that's going on ahead of him, and so you might get a good view of even the battle for the race lead further down the road as well, as those guys going close as ever coming through Vale. This is Kevin Ellis Jr. back to the same sort of situation as he was in race 1. It's just applying the pressure and just not giving Seb any room to breathe, but Seb has just dealt with it. I haven't seen that many mistakes from him. The mistakes that I've seen have been from Kevin Ellis Jr. instead. It seems like Job is just in his element no matter whether someone is bearing down his neck or not.
Yeah, he's really good at dealing with pressure. Pressure and stress is something that you have to learn to deal with in sim racing, especially at the top level. Mental fatigue is a huge thing in top level performance, so you've really got to have not only cardiovascular fitness but also that mental fitness as well, and working on that really sets you apart from everybody else. And these top drivers, they all put the time in and the effort in to work on themselves, to make sure that they're in the best possible frame of mind and don't allow emotions to get involved in it. Jackie Stewart used to say, don't bring emotions into your driving because you'll end up making mistakes. Keep calm, control your emotions and get to the end. That's why you never really see these drivers celebrating when they win.
I think we will see Kevin celebrating if he wins this one, though. I think that's going to be a given. So I would advise our director to get the camera ready just in case he does. But 5 minutes left to go here in this one as they'll head their way through Chapel. Again, this has been a tricky spot actually for Kevin Ellis Jr. He's been having problems with the exit of the corner, and that was the crucial mistake that actually got him into this situation and lost him the race lead here. But here we go, lunge to the inside at Stowe Corner. First time Kevin Ellis Jr. has been on the inside of Sebastian Job coming through here. Job's able to hold on with the momentum around the long way, but Kevin Ellis Jr. is still stuck a nose in there. Outside for the first apex of Vale, inside for the second apex, tries to avoid tagging the rear of the Red Bull Racing Esports car, but Sebastian Job holds strong. He's slow coming through Club, though. That wasn't a very good run out of the corner. Kevin can come back at him now, coming in towards T1. Oh, the door is shut.
Yeah, Job just catching that sausage curb on the inside of Club. It unsettles your car and it causes you to go a little bit slow. Kev just got a little bit of a slide there through turn number 3. And now into Chapel again. Got to hound Sebastian. Time is now starting to run out.
This is way better of a run this time from Kevin Ellis Jr. You can see it because Sebastian Job's just desperately trying to break the draft. Again, another attempt down the inside. Is there space to make that work? Job will give him the squeeze regardless of whether he's already on the inside or not. Is there a lunge into Vale? There's a look at least, but no. Oh, they get so close. This is brilliant fighting through the second apex of Vale. Now in towards Club Corner. Kevin Ellis Jr. is basically pressing his front bumper into the rear of the Red Bull Racing Esports Porsche. We just have a handful of laps to go here in this one. Job has done an amazing job in hanging on to the race lead right now, despite whatever Ellis Jr. is able to throw at him. All of these lunges down into all of these corners, and Job still comes out on top regardless.
Kevin's got to be careful though with a lunge down there. We saw what happened with Carroll earlier on, and just one little lock-up of a brake and it can be disaster, and you could be wiping out the race leader there. So you've got to be careful, and these cars are one of the most difficult cars to race here on iRacing. So easy to snatch a front brake, so easy to lock the rear as well to send you around. But Ellis Jr. putting the pressure on. We've got about 2 laps remaining in this one.
Yep, we have. He's just trying to find every single line possible, but where he goes, that Red Bull Racing Esports car is moving to try and cover off the line, and fairly as well. There's no blocking going on between these two. Yes, there's the braking of the slipstream coming down the straight, but in terms of the defense and in terms of the offense, it has been completely fair between these two. Hopefully that remains the case in the final moments of this race. Lunge to the inside up towards Village though. Oh, Ellis Jr. is so late on the brakes coming into there, so you get to see he's getting more and more desperate here. He wants to rattle Sebastian Job's cage, but Job is just absorbing all of this pressure right now. He has a bit of a better gap coming out of the Chapel this time around, so the move is unlikely into Stowe.
I think it's costing Kevin though with those lunges into Village. I really do. I think he'd be rather better pressed and better suited just staying behind Sebastian and keeping right up to his rear bumper to give him the best run out of Chapel onto the hangar straight. So here we go then. We're going to have one more lap of this race.
One more lap to go then, as we'll get to the 1 minute and 2 second mark as they head their way across the line then. And so that is confirmed that this is going to be the final lap of race 2 here. Round number 7 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain at Silverstone International. And it's come down to the 2 championship leaders trying to fight it out here on the last lap for that crucial race win that might matter a bunch coming into the final round of the season with how close they are in terms of the points. Sebastian Job holds the advantage then coming out of Chapel Corner. Kevin Ellis Jr. continuing to try and sit in the slipstream. I don't think the opportunity into Stowe is going to be here. He's going to look to the inside regardless and try and make something happen to here. Slight missed apex though for Sebastian Job. He's wide by about half a car width, and now this might open up the opportunity in towards Vale. Kevin Ellis Jr. late on the brakes. How late does he dare? Coming into the second apex now. Can he get the speed around the outside at Club Corner? Can Sebastian Job hold on? Job holds on. Oh, and there's the slide. Oh, my words. Kevin Ellis Jr. slides across the line to still take P2. He doesn't lose a spot, but what a defensive performance from the man of the moment, Sebastian Job. That was one of the best defensive drives I've ever seen in sim racing. Of my 5 years of commentating on this stuff, that was one of the most cool, calm and collected drives I've ever seen.
That was sensational, and the 360 no-scope at the end from Kevin Ellis Jr., it wasn't quite working out for him, but he still hangs on to second place with that, so tremendous display of driving from both of those two at the front. Sensational, brilliant stuff.
Yeah, I'm out of breath, let's just say that, but there's the results up on screen for you now, as they're unofficial, of course, pending post-race review, but Sebastian Job wins here in race 2. He does the double, and at the most crucial of times, coming into the closing stages of this season, extends his points gap over Kevin Ellis Jr. Jamie Fluke with a good run up into P3, podium spot for him. Graham Carroll P4, Jamie Moon P5, and Isaac Price in P6. I have to wonder what actually happens to Jack Cedric at the very end there, because he was in P3, but Fluke was able to put him to the post. Meanwhile, we've got Bart Horston P7, Blair Mann P8, John Robertson P9, and Miroslav Nashilzik recovers up into P10 after finishing at the back of race number 1. Further down the order, you have Ryan Parkins, Matthew Dorrington, Matt Emery, Jack Sedgwick, Peter Berryman, Fraser Williamson, and Lewis Goodway, rounding out the 17 cars that took the start here in race number 2. Drama. Drama is the word of the day here to describe these two races. What an amazing display of driving from those front two guys. It could have so easily ended in tears, Paul, but... And usually we do see them end in tears, but the amount of respect that these guys have for each other just surpasses everything else, and it gave us an amazing show. I
can tell you exactly what happened to Jack Sedgwick in avoiding Kevin Ellis Jr. coming around at the end of the lap, at the end of the race. He ran out wide into the runoff, and that's given him a slowdown penalty, which he has not been able to serve because he's literally crossed the line seconds later, and that's dropped him all the way down to 14th on that final lap.
I feel bad for him there, and that wasn't his doing. So we might even, I hope at least, I don't know whether it's in the rule book, but I hope at least that the stewards will review that and actually give him his
I would doubt that.
It wasn't his fault though that he was trying to avoid.
I would no, but at the end of the day, it is a penalty that's implemented by the sim. Yeah, so as we always say, these results are provisional, pending any steward's decision. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will. So there we go. We'll have to wait to see if any of the drivers want to come in for an interview. I understand if those front two guys don't really want to do that, but we do actually have Kevin Ellis Jr. coming in just a couple of moments. Here's the replay actually of the incident at the very end of the race. You can see Jack Cedric going wide, picking up the slowdown penalty, coming up to the line, and that was all she wrote as far as his race is concerned. He could have come across and finished in that podium spot, but unfortunately wasn't to be. My words. We'll get Kevin Ellis Jr. in just next year, as we'll bring him in. And Paul, take it away with Kevin, because I need to save my voice, basically.
Yeah, thanks. So we've got the guy who's got very little voice now doing the interview. So, Kevin, I mean, that was tremendous racing, tremendous action between the two of you, and the respect that yourself and Seb show. You show it each and every round of this championship, don't you? Just what was it that you just couldn't quite get the move done here today?
Yeah, it's a tough place to pass here. You know, really struggled to try and get alongside and stay there. And of course, in the second race, when I got to the lead, I just braked for the cut through, and with it being downhill, it's such a difficult braking zone. such a difficult corner, and the rear just stepped out ever so slightly, and that of course gave Seb the chance to get ahead. And yeah, I gave that everything I had today. I'm absolutely exhausted after those 2 races. Tried everything I could in the first race to learn what I could and couldn't get away with, and then in the second race, just couldn't quite keep the tyres on it, and ultimately didn't want to hit Seb as well. You know, we've got quite strict penalties here if you do make contact with someone. So you know, I was more interested in just finishing cleanly, like we have all season, rather than having an incident there. So, no, congrats to Seb on the double win. He drove that almost perfectly there, and yeah, I give that everything I had there.
And well, I mean, we've seen that these laps were coming thick and fast. It was fast and frenetic. I'm not surprised that you guys are all out of breath and exhausted from that, because that was you were always on it, weren't you? You were always on that limit, pushing as hard as you could throughout that race. Yeah,
it's such a short lap. There's not really any places you can afford to give up time and then make it back later in the lap. Everything's high speed. Everything's on the limit of the car's grip. You know, it's quite a low grip surface here at Silverstone, and then the car lacks quite a bit of grip in itself. So, you know, as the laps kind of went on and on, the tyres were getting hotter and hotter, and you know, at the end of the first race, my tyres just completely fell away there. All the scrapping I had with Seb at the start just fried them off the car, and obviously led to a mistake that let ground by, which wasn't ideal. So obviously we've given up quite a lot of points there, which is not ideal. But yeah, I mean, it's just, as you say, on the limit, the whole race, and that's why it's so tough to pass as well, because it's not as if I can brake later than Seb, because he's already braking as late as he can. So yeah, just it's an exciting place to race because it's so close and it's high speed, but in terms of actually racing, it's really, really stressful.
Well, I mean, from the back of an envelope bit of maths, I reckon that Sebastian's now got an 11-point lead, roughly, going into the final round at Brands Hatch. Now, Brands is a tricky track to overtake at, as we all know, even on the Grand Prix loop. I suppose the goal for you is quite simple: get a pole position, get the win in race 1, and then try your best to work your way to the front of race 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. I think Pete got fastest lap on the very last lap, so I think that saved 1 point at least. That minimised some of the damage. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough, of course. You know, the last couple of rounds haven't really been great for me personally, just in terms of raw pace and compared to Seb. So it's luckily we got a bit of a break from the Super Cup, so we can put a bit more focus into Brands and hopefully be a bit stronger there. And as you say, hopefully get the qualifying sorted and get race 1 victory, and then do what we can from the reverse. Obviously, I'm quite fortunate to have quite a few teammates. I saw a bit of issues behind, unfortunately, so I'm just glad I can stay out of all that mess and just let me and Seb have a go at each other. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we're a bit closer on pace at Brands Hatch, and we can have a bit of a scrap with Seb for the title. I think P2 is almost guaranteed now, so yeah, we'll have a bit of a scrap with Seb and see what we can do.
Well, it's been tremendous action throughout the whole season, and both yourself and Sebastian should be congratulated for the sportsmanship that you're showing, giving each other just enough room. But all the best for next week and the season finale. You can still do it.
It's going to be close. It's going to be hard, but yeah, we'll give it a go. Thanks, guys.
Well, there we go. That was Kevin Ellis Jr. P2 in race 2 here today, P3 in race number 1. Falling a little bit more behind Sebastian Job coming into the final round of the season, but still close, still within a shot. You know, if Sebastian Job has any problems in the races coming up at Brands Hatch, then the championship is there for the taking. Kevin Ellis Jr. But, you know, it's 1 week's time now. There's not a lot of time to prepare for that.
Yeah, it all comes down to Brands Hatch, and what a venue we are going to as well. A traditional season finale for the Porsche Carrera Cup GB in real life, and we get to see it as the finale here as well in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup GB series. So it's been a tremendous season all year. Well, since January. So it's been a tremendous season, and I'm looking forward to the season finale. It could be fireworks, but hopefully in the right way.
Scotland versus England is considered a very popular and hotly contested derby in the UK when it comes to any sort of sporting event, be it in football, be it in rugby, but it seems like we have the same sort of thing here in sim racing. Kevin Ellis Jr. versus Sebastian Job coming into the final round at Brands Hatch in just a week's time. Join us here on RaceSpotTV and on all the Porsche social media channels for that. Same time, same place next week. I've been Connery Maddock. I've been joined by the ever wonderful Mr. Paul Smith. Thank you very much for Tyler Maxson behind the scenes, pushing all the buttons and making all those pictures happen. But we have to wait with bated breath before that next race at Brands Hatch. You do not want to miss it. Mark it in your calendars, and we'll see you then.